Thank you for your interest in our graduate programs at Cal State LA. Today we'll be talking about two different programs in the Department of Psychology, specifically the MA in Psychology and the MS in Forensic Psychology. And in this next slide, we are asking if you can register your attendance so that we can also provide you with a copy of the slides. We do have hyperlinks in some of our slides so that if you can explore, if you're interested in pursuing additional information, you'll be able to click on the slides and learn a little bit more. But if you can also register your attendance to make sure that we have a record of everyone that is here today. And if you are here for extra credit for an instructor, there is also a question about that in the survey that you can complete. So first I'll introduce you to me and Dr. Sabo, who are running the presentation. My name is Dr. Alma Olagues. I'm a faculty mentor in the Forensic Psychology MS program. I direct a lab that is conducting research on psychology and the law, and I'm also on the admissions committee. So I'm here to also provide some tips as to what a successful application looks like. And I'm also an alumni of the forensic psychology program. So I can also share my student experience coming through the program as a student here at Cal State LA, in addition to my experience as a faculty. I'm also here with Dr. Sabo, who is a faculty mentor in the MA in Psychology graduate program. She conducts research on, she's a clinical psychologist, and she conducts research on the impact of stress. And she will also be serving as the MA coordinator in the spring, so essentially overseeing the graduate program as we have applications come in and admitting those students into our program in the spring. We both also teach a lot of the graduate courses, so we get to know a lot of our students pretty well and are often on thesis committees for our students. And importantly, I want to highlight that there is a lot of overlap between these programs. So the MA in psychology and the MS in forensic psychology, there is more overlap than differences between them. So when I talk about our program, or when I'm talking about the program in general, I am addressing both. And when we do have these differences, I'll be able to highlight that throughout our presentation. So if you don't hear any differences or anything that's specific to one of the programs, that means that this applies to both. So today's agenda is informed by the questions that you submitted in your registration form. So thank you for submitting those questions and registering for the workshop ahead of time. First, we're going to cover what career options you have with the MA or the MS degree and what graduate programs that provide this type of training typically do. We'll share what our program here at Cal State LA specifically looks like and what you might encounter as a student in our program. Then we'll talk about what our program costs and what are some funding options that are available. We'll finally end with what to expect during the application process, and we'll share some tips to increase your chances of success if you're applying to this cycle. And we want to provide enough time for Q&A at the very end in order to answer any remaining questions that you might have that haven't been addressed during the presentation. If you have questions about specific topics as we cover them, feel free to drop them in the chat, and then we'll try to address a few as we go. But we want to make sure that if we don't answer them throughout the presentation, we have them at the very end during our Q&A.
All right. It's a little bit harder than I thought to manage the chat and the slides and the other stuff, so apologies, everyone. So we got a lot of submitted questions about the benefits of a master's in arts or a master's in science, and so we wanted to start there. In short, there are a lot of things that you can do with a master's degree. Some of the things you can do with a bachelor's degree, but having a master's makes you more competitive. This is things like being a research coordinator, a caseworker. Others, you need a master's degree at a minimum, but a PhD is preferred. That's something like teaching, being a research analyst. Our program is research focused and mentor based. It's really best designed to be a stepping stone for those who want to go to a PhD or a PsyD, which is the Doctor of Psychology. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. I think what some folks don't know, especially those who have clinical interests, is that there are things that you can do that are applied in nature that are not therapy and do not require a license. These are things like psychology technicians, if you are working in a government system, clinical interviewers, caseworkers, family services advocates, and these are things that the soft skills that you gain in a master's degree can really help support you. And for the folks who are interested in the more forensic option, we have graduates of our program who are working in jury consulting. You can work as investigative research specialist. They're forensic interviewers and also fraud and program investigation, where that master's degree specifically in forensic psychology gives you an edge in the application process. So we might be a little bit biased, but we think that choosing to get your degree at Cal State LA is a pretty great decision. One of these reasons is that Cal State LA is consistently ranked as one of the top regional universities, and we are actually rated as #1 in the nation for supporting the upward mobility of the students who attend here. And so, pass back to you.
So we'll talk a little bit about what our excuse me, what our program is going to look like in terms of the combined MA/MS experience. So our program is a full-time program. It is in person at our Cal State LA campus. We follow a cohort model. So students take very similar courses and achieve these milestones throughout the program with the cohort or their class. So this helps students have a network right away that they can use as a support system as they progress through the program. And they're typically achieving these milestones at the same time and also complete the program at the same time. In the first year, students are typically taking 3 courses per semester. These courses are going to help you develop your thesis idea, which I'll talk a little bit about in a bit. But in that first year, you're really just getting your feet on the ground and starting to develop that thesis idea, getting some important training in your courses so that in your second year, you can shift some of that focus on your thesis project. So you're going to take a few less courses. Sometimes it can be as little as 1 course a semester, maybe 1 or no courses in the spring semester when you graduate. But that's because a lot of your time is spent on your thesis writing and developing your thesis project. So the goal of this 2-year program is to have active research involvement during the 2 years. So that starts right when you join the program in the fall and ends with the thesis defense at the end of the spring, about 2 years later. Your next question might be, what does research involvement look like? And this is a tough question to answer because it really depends on what lab you are in and which faculty supervisor you might be working with. That can look very different. Some labs are extremely active and you might work on multiple research projects in addition to your thesis. In other labs, you might have an independent research project. In other labs, you might collect data for a new idea, or you might analyze existing data to examine something that hasn't been examined yet. So that's really going to depend on your faculty supervisor, and those are some good questions to ask during the interview process. An important piece to highlight here in regards to the differences between the forensic option and the MA is that in the second year, students are also involved in a practicum or an internship. So these students are completing their thesis, are taking coursework, and involved in an internship, which I'll also talk a little bit more about later in this presentation. So the goal of both programs is really to help you develop the skills necessary to successfully defend your thesis. Your thesis is going to be an independent research project that's completed with a faculty supervisor or a faculty mentor on a topic of their interest or a topic that they typically study in their lab. Graduation is dependent on the successful defense of this thesis. So this thesis is going to be a written paper, a written project that you will then defend or present to a committee of 3 faculty in our department. The successful defense of that thesis means that you have your approval to graduate spring 2 years after you start. So a lot of the courses that you're going to be taking are really structured around the foundational skills that you will need to defend this thesis. For example, reading the literature, you'll need to understand what has been done already. How does your thesis project contribute to the literature? Having a good understanding of research methods and the types of methods that are available for you and how you might defend your own specific research design. Statistical analysis courses, because you will have that piece in your thesis. You're going to analyze data and present those findings and be able to communicate those results in a written format and through a presentation at the very end. In addition to other options that are not a requirement of the program, but you might want to do. You might want to present at a research conference to also share your finding and really develop your professional development and really work on your professional development skills as well.
This is a very common question we get, which is, does your program offer clinical training? And in short, no. Our program is focused on psychological science and research skills. By completing this program, you are not eligible for licensure. You cannot become a therapist. If your ultimate goal is to practice, you might be suited to apply to programs that are preparing you to be a master's level counselor, things like a licensed marriage and family therapist or a licensed professional counselor. We do have many, many students who join our program who do have clinical interests and goals. Sometimes when you apply to doctoral programs, even that are clinical, so like the Doctor of Psychology program, they often require you to have a master's, or having a master's degree makes you more competitive for their program. So a lot of students whose ultimate goal to apply to a PsyD complete their master's here before applying. Also, for those who want to go on to clinical psychology PhDs, health psychology PhDs, those programs are research focused programs. And so, conducting research with the faculty in our department, especially the labs that do more applied or clinical research, is going to help make you more competitive for those programs. The format of our program and the expertise of our mentors can often help get you the experiences that you need to be more competitive for that next level. And as someone who mentors a lot of students who do ultimately want to go on to clinical psychology PhDs or PsyDs, your mentor works with you to think through what other applied experiences you might need. As Dr. O mentioned, if you're in the forensic program, there are certain internships that might make more sense for you, such as working, she'll talk more about them, working in more applied settings. I often help my students think through clinical experiences. So they might do volunteering, they might work with some of my collaborators on more applied research projects, or they might choose a thesis project with me that is more applied in nature. Like the questions are more applied so that they're competitive for that next step. Oop, too many slides. So I do know that this figure might be a little bit difficult to see. I'll go through the specific names in the next couple of slides, and I also included a direct link in the top right corner so you know exactly where to find it later. In our program, applicants are matched to a mentor. And to answer one of the submitted questions, this is done at the admissions phase. So you are accepted into our program to work with a particular mentor. And so one part of the application process is to list who you might be interested in working with. And so this is a list of the different faculty in our department. And so I'll talk a little bit more about the MA in psychology now. Our faculty are divided into core areas based on the topics of the work that they do, as you can see in the bottom corner. So these are areas like clinical, cross-cultural or multicultural psychology, physiological and neuroscience, social psychology, developmental psychology. And these faculty that are listed on this slide have indicated that they will be reviewing applications this cycle and are looking to admit one or maybe more than one student this next cycle. And so if you're interested in applying to our program, I would highly recommend that you spend some time looking at the research that they do. This could be through their Google Scholar pages and the type of research that they've published. Many of us have little descriptions of our labs on either our faculty websites or on our research lab description websites. I even have a Q&A document for students who are interested in working with me that explains exactly what our team does to be a helpful resource for applicants. We also have several other faculty who know that they are not taking students. So the students listed on the right have indicated that they are not going to accept students this cycle. And so one of our first tips is do not list the three of them as the primary person you're interested in working with, because they are not going to be reviewing applications this cycle. For the faculty on the left that are listed under email to inquire, these are faculty that either are unsure if they're going to take a student or not, or might take a student if the right fit is there. And so our department encourages you to reach out to them directly to see if you might be a good fit or if they know now that they might take students this next cycle, so that you're really only listing them if you know that they'll be looking at your application this cycle. Okay.
If you're interested in forensic psychology, then you would be applying to the MS in forensic psychology this cycle. This subfield of psychology is a more specific focus, similar to some of the sub areas that Dr. Sabo described earlier. This is the intersection of psychology and the law, sometimes called forensic psychology, sometimes called legal psychology. But it really all examines the how psychological factors influence the legal system. And this is the type of research that I conduct and that we specialize in our department. There are two active labs in our department that study forensic psychology. Dr. Eisen studies eyewitness memory and the different procedures that can increase the likelihood of false identifications. So this hyperlink that you can click on that we will provide in the slides tells you a little bit more about what that specific field of study is going to look like. I direct the Legal Attitudes Lab, which is examining how jurors make decisions in criminal and civil cases. And I'm just starting to look at perceptions of law enforcement. So it's important to note that forensic psychology is still a very broad discipline, and there are a lot of topics within this subfield that I have not mentioned. For example, forensic assessment, juvenile delinquency, interrogations, the effect of trauma. If you are pursuing a doctoral degree and want to study these topics, that's great. Our program is designed to really help you get there. And if you want to study those topics at a future program as a doctoral student, that's still definitely an option. But I do want to note that these are the topics that we are currently examining in our department. And if you choose to study these topics in our department and then pursue a doctorate degree, our program can help you get there. You can use our program as a stepping stone to really gain research experience and be more competitive when you apply to those programs. Because it is a niche area, they can be really competitive, and having a master's during the application process to PhD programs or PsyD programs in forensic psychology can be really helpful when you are applying. Another piece that is unique about the forensic program is that the students who are enrolled in the in this emphasis or this option within our department are mostly taking similar courses with students in the MA, but there are a couple courses that are going to be different because all students do have the option, typically in their second year, to have some elective courses. And those electives can be specific to forensic psychology for these folks. So they might take a course in human memory or psych and law or child maltreatment, whereas the other students might be taking more general courses that are related to their interests. Importantly, in the second year, the students engage in a 9-month practicum. So this is during the fall and spring semester during the second year, where they are gaining hands-on training in a forensic setting that's related to their interests. So depending on what you want to do after the MS degree here at Cal State LA, we have a couple of placement options that students might be working in. For example, if you're interested in jury consulting and are interested in pursuing that after your time here at Cal State LA, then you can complete your practicum at a jury consulting firm. If you are interested in forensic interviewing, you might be working at the dependency court. We have a child dependency court across the street. And if you are interested in pursuing clinical training, so if you are going to pursue a PhD in clinical psychology or a PsyD in forensic psychology, or have interest in working in a clinical setting, then you can intern at a forensic mental health hospital that we also have access to or that we work with. we do want to note that there is going to be a slight change in the name of our program. So currently we are the MA in psychology and the MS in forensic psychology. We are streamlining some things because, as I mentioned, both of our programs are more similar than they are different. So this helps us streamline our application process. So we'll have one program in an MA in psychology, and students will have an option to specialize in either general psychology or forensic psychology. So importantly, students are going to have a very similar experience. It's still going to be very much what we have now, but in case you see something changing on the website or you have some confusion as that change happens, especially moving forward into next year and the year after that, that is what's happening. We're just changing the name, but internally, everything is still going to be the same.
Yeah, great point. So do not be alarmed if you notice the name is different. Continue to route onto the psychology website. Um, okay, so we got a lot of questions about the cost to attend our program. And so this information is directly from the Cal State LA website, but I did check in with our current graduate students to make sure that it was tracking. The cost is about $5,000 a semester when you factor in tuition and books, and that matches with the $9,144 per year. If you are not a California resident, you do pay out-of-state tuition, which is an additional fee for each unit that you're registered in. Unfortunately, financial aid looks really different at the graduate level. Graduate students are not eligible for things like the Pell Grant, but we do encourage people to still complete their FAFSA because there are certain loans that you might be eligible for. You might also be eligible for work study. We do also, I think it's so important to ask questions about cost and how to make this next step in your education feasible. And so we do want to share some of the funding opportunities. there are something called graduate assistants in our program, which is, I think most of us have thought of it as like more of a teaching assistant. But when faculty members teach a large class, like I will be teaching a class of 130 students in the spring semester, we have a graduate assistant whose role is to help hold office hours, to help do the reading, hold review sessions, help with grading. And we prioritize graduate students in our program to be hired for those GA positions. And this is part-time employment. So you can do um, like 5 hour a week GA ships. I think the lowest amount we have is 3 hours a week, or up to 20 hours a week. And I think we have a pretty good track record of people who want multiple GA ships or a larger number of hours are able to get them. We do have several scholarships available at our within our university and within the psychology department. Every year in April, students apply through the Cal State LA Scholarship Fund for the following year. The award amounts really do vary. I've seen scholarships ranging from about $100 to I think the highest I ever saw was $4,000. So there really is a lot of variability, and we do encourage all of our students to apply. We also have the Graduate Equity Fellowship. This was created through Cal State LA, the School for the Graduate Student Resource Center, for students who have greater financial need, and offer up to $1,000 per semester. And then we also have a research fellowship on campus for those who are interested in pursuing a PhD, so a more research degree in a biomedical field, which psychology falls under. And this does support financial support. I'm sorry, this offers financial support for you to be able to engage in research more fully while you're a student in our program. Unfortunately, with the federal changes, this grant has been canceled and then reinstated. So it is active this year, and they will be seeking applications in March and April. But unfortunately, it is sort of like a to be determined whether it will be available on a case by case basis. Dr. O, is there anything you want to mention related to funding that I didn't? I think this one's so important. I don't want to miss anything.
No, I think you covered it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for checking the chat. So now for the meat of it. We both review a lot of applications every year. As Dr. O mentioned, she is on the admissions committee. I am going to be our MA coordinator for the spring semester, which means I'm going to be one of the ones helping verifying that people have met the prerequisites, helping people get admitted. And so we wanted to share some of our opinions and experiences to help you all put forward the strongest possible application. So, as a little bit of context of how competitive is our program and what do accepted students look like, we received about 200 applications last year and we accepted 12 students. The average GPA over our last several cohorts was about a 3.6. So these are students who are very strong academically. For this next upcoming year, we're hoping to actually recruit a few more students with a target incoming cohort of 15. As Dr. O mentioned, we really love that cohort model, and our students really do build community with each other. Most of our students, I'm teaching the Intro to Graduate Studies course right now, and I want to say 80 to 90% of our first year students are planning to apply to a doctoral program. This really is in line with our program being set up to give you really stellar research training. And the students who do have more clinical interests work with the faculty in the MA program or the MS program who do have that more applied research focus. In terms of the logistics, everything is done through Cal State Apply. There is no separate thing that you need to do for our department. You would go to the Cal State LA website, find the semester, which would be fall 2026. We only admit students once a year in the fall, and that is part of our cohort model. We want our students to come in together, take their classes together, and move through the requirements of the program together. So it would be for fall 2026, and then you would be able to navigate to the application. In terms of the specifics of the application, some of this I think is pretty standard. If you've been looking, there will be a fee to apply. You will have to submit your transcripts, and you do need to complete a statement of purpose. Dr. O is going to talk a little bit more about that. You do need 3 letters of recommendation. And one thing that I will note as a letter writer, you can send the link to your letter writers before you actually submit your application. So it is a good tip to give them a little bit of time to work on it and upload it. And we do ask for a summary of your research experiences, and this is a fill-in template. And based on the faculty that review your application that you are applying to work with, you may also be asked for a copy of your curriculum vitae or CV. This is an academic resume. You may be asked to complete an interview over Zoom, and then you may be asked to submit a writing sample so your faculty can get a sense of your writing ability, your interests, things like that. Great, statement of purpose.
So the statement of purpose is a little bit unique and different compared to some other programs. There is a word requirement or length requirement for this statement. So typically we want it to be about 400 to 500 words, a maximum of 2 pages, double spaced. So this helps keep it consistent across applicants and also gives us enough information about what you are interested in doing in our program. This is our specific prompt that you would find on our website. It is asking you to indicate your reasons for wishing to pursue a research-oriented program. Hopefully you're seeing a theme across today's presentation that the goal of our program is really to provide stellar research training. So we want to know why you're interested in conducting research as a graduate student, where you want to focus your interests, and provide us any experience relevant to your goals and interests. So I'll talk a little bit more about these pieces on the next slide as well to elaborate. So for example, giving us information about why you are pursuing a research-oriented program is going to give us an idea that you understand our specific program and what we do here. It also shows your level of commitment to research. So if students are aware of the type of research they are interested in pursuing and have clear goals and what they're going to do with our degree, that makes it more likely that they're going to finish their degree once they get here. And that gives us evidence that they are going to be a successful student. And when we are reviewing applications during the admissions process, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for evidence of students that are going to be successful in our program. And we want to better serve our students, and we only want to take students that know what we do here and that you think that this is going to be a good fit for you and a good fit for us. In the next piece, sorry, can you go back 1 second? Thank you. So the next piece is highlighting your area of interest and connecting that to the faculty member. So because we are a mentor-based model, you are going to be paired with a faculty mentor. And if you are talking about research interests that are related to a specific faculty and you list that specific faculty and that faculty is taking students, that makes it more likely that your application is going to be reviewed and that you might make it to the top of the pile. The research experience that you, or the experience or personal experience that you might want to highlight in your statement. Of course, having research experience as an undergraduate is going to be most helpful, again, because that provides evidence that you know what research is and that you will be successful in our program, that you enjoy conducting research and that you've done it before. If you haven't had the opportunity to conduct research as an undergrad, you can talk about your coursework. So a part of the requirement is that you are taking research methods as an undergraduate, statistics as an undergraduate. You can talk about your research projects in those courses, what influenced your research question, what did you find, what did you do for these courses, what are some presentations that you delivered, That helps highlight that you understand the research process and that you are interested in continuing to pursue research as well. Um, and then again, highlighting that you want to list the faculty members in order of preference that are paired with these research interests, because as the admissions committee, we are looking to match you with a faculty member that is taking students. So if you make it clear and obvious to us who you want to work with, then you have a direct pathway so that that faculty has the opportunity to review the application. If you can also highlight how you can contribute to their research, then that's going to make it more compelling that you've really thought through that line of research and that you see yourself as a student there. I speak with my hands, so I always get the um, hand signal where I'm just talking, I'm just talking. Okay, so next slide. These are some common mistakes that we typically see and some tips that you can avoid doing in your statement if you've never written a statement before. And these are some things that you can avoid doing to really strengthen your opportunities for success. So some things to avoid in your statement is really elaborating and really talking about your mental health struggles. Because this is a field of mental health, because a lot of folks have um, pursued the field of psychology, because they have had personal experiences with mental health or family experiences with mental health, that is a very common experience for folks. And that might be your go-to, is to talk about your mental health struggles and why this led you to the field of psychology. However, I want to stress that you want to consider this statement as a interview pitch. So if it is not something that you would discuss during an interview with a potential employer, I wouldn't recommend including that in your statement because a graduate program can be stressful and can put a lot of demand on our students and is designed to be more difficult and rigorous than an undergraduate program. We are going to look for students that are resilient, that have a clear understanding of our program, and those are going to be the most successful students in our program. So those are some things to know. Um, Give me one more second back here. So if you don't list faculty or you describe research interests that are not related to specific faculty in our program, that makes it hard for us to know where to place you. You might not be reviewed by a specific faculty member because they don't conduct that research, right? And it's not because you weren't a strong applicant, but it's just because you weren't able to find a home given the faculty that are taking students. Um, because we are a research-oriented program, we admire your pursuit of wanting to become a therapist, but this program will not prepare you to become a therapist, and we do not provide access to the therapist license. So this is something to be clear. Our program goal is about research and improving research training, so that's what you want to focus on. It's also super common and super relevant that you may not have the opportunity to conduct research. I was also a student who was working full time as an undergrad. I also did not have time to conduct research, but similar to an interview, you don't want to use that precious time talking about the things that you don't have or the things that you didn't do. You want to talk about your strengths. So you want to talk about the things that you did do, and a lot of that can come from coursework or things that you can do on a volunteer basis to get some research experience or to get some valuable hands-on experience. And Dr. Sabo will talk about that as well. And then finally, it might be a given to some folks, but we want to see a polished draft. Evidence that this is a first draft can be obvious typos or incomplete sentences. We see it and we see it often. So make sure that this is not the first draft and you get feedback from others so that you have a very compelling and clear story that you are telling in your statement. And finally, we have On the next slide, we have some resources that I'm sharing with you through the Psychology Resource Center. So I direct the Psychology Resource Center here in the department. Right now, we are on Discord. I am uploading a lot of resources on Discord. This is open to all students, even if you're not a Cal State LA student. On Discord, I have a 1 hour workshop where I specifically talk about the personal history statement. If you want to get some more tips there, I have some guides and I have some additional tips on how to ask for a letter of rec. So this is also provided in the link, or you can scan the QR code now so that you can have additional access to improve your application.
Just giving folks a second to scan if they're scanning, and then I can move through for our last few slides. Okay, so when you are applying, you don't just need 3 letters of recommendation. You need strong letters of recommendation. And these letters should be primarily from faculty, at least 2 people, 2 faculty members. 3 is really better, although I think the third can come from a supervisor if your work is related to psychology. It doesn't, when I was in college, I worked in a restaurant. It would not have helped my graduate applications to include it from my manager there. Or if you do extracurriculars, this could be the club advisor for an organization that you're a part of. In terms of what faculty should I ask, these should absolutely be faculty that you did research with. They should be faculty that you took multiple classes with so they can comment on your intellect. They actually know you as a person. You might also consider specifically the faculty from your statistics and research methods courses because they're going to be able to tell us about the project you conducted, about your analytical skills. And when we talk about a strong letter, we want this to be more than just this person was in my class and they passed. We want them to be able to tell us about how ready you are for graduate studies, that you have research experience or clarity through these courses and other experiences, that you're ready for this research degree. And then we want to know more about you, your goals, your ability to take feedback. This helps us as mentors know what it would be like to work with you. And so you should think about faculty that know you beyond just as a student. So these are going to be the faculty that you've visited in office hours. And if you're looking like, oh, shoot, I haven't done that, start now. Go talk to those faculty members that you keep signing up for their classes. Talk with them about your goals. Go to their office hours. And then when it comes time to ask for a letter of recommendation, which should be well in advance of the deadline, they're able to write a strong letter about who you are and who you would be in our program. The very common question of what if I don't have research experience? And I think one, if you are in college, especially if you are a psychology major, you are getting research training in almost everything that you are doing. So talk about coursework. This could be research methods. This could be statistics. Maybe you took an introduction to clinical and counseling class. Maybe you took a child maltreatment class. These shaped your scholarly interests in some ways. You might have relevant work experience related to trying to let someone in, sorry. Related to psychology. Maybe you are working with children and have started to wonder about how their development is related to their life experience. You've developed research questions through that applied work. We also really want to see proactive efforts to seek experience. Like Dr. O mentioned, you don't want to just say, oh, I didn't have time to do it. Tell me about all the things that you did do to build that research skill set. There's so many free sources related to statistics and data analysis, things like Coursera. There's Harvard has free R tutorials. There's CITI training, which is ethics and human subjects research. IRB-Net is a website that our institutional review board or ethics boards often have us use to submit research proposals. And there are all kinds of free workshops and recordings that you could watch to better understand the research process. And as someone who does review applications, if there's the topic fit, proactive efforts, a strong letter from a research methods or statistics professor, you've started to demonstrate to me that you would do really well in a research program. So I think in terms of kind of our wrapping up notes, our deadline is February 15th, 2026 to start in fall 2026. The time to start your application is absolutely now. A lot of faculty members are not available over the winter break to provide feedback on your goals, to discuss letters of recommendation. And so I would recommend that you start going to office hours immediately. And before this semester has ended, you ask students, or you ask students, do ask other students, but that you ask those faculty members if they would be able to ask you specifically to write if they would be able to write you a strong letter. So sort of to wrap us up, and I see the questions coming in the chat. Please continue to put questions there. Thank you for being here and showing interest in our programs. Dr. O and I love teaching in our program. We love mentoring in our program. Our students are absolutely phenomenal. Um, Please remember to use the Google form link in the chat or scan the QR code to register that you were here today. One of the faculty members is offering extra credit, and so you put your name down and we'll let her know you were here. We will also send a copy of today's slides so that you have all those beautiful hyperlinks to the email that you put on that Google form. Dr. O, I'll leave this up for a minute, but it does look like we've started to have a few questions. Do you want to take the first few?
Yes, one of the questions is about having experience with statistics. So if, for example, one of the things that we talked about is what if you don't have research experience? You can talk about your coursework, right? So if you, for example, don't have research experience, but you are heavily involved and doing really well in your research methods course, in your statistics course, you can really elaborate on that and think about creative ways that you can go beyond the classroom. So what are some things that you can do beyond the classroom that are going to help you differentiate yourself from other students in the course? That can come from visiting the instructor's office hours in your statistics class. So in your statement, you can talk about what you are examining as part of your statistics training, but going to your instructor's office hours and they can potentially be a letter writer. And you can talk about some of these goals, and your instructor might give you some tips as to how you can extend your training and do things beyond what the course requires. So that helps you stand out from other students.
I saw that there was a couple of questions in the chat about faculty exclusive to psychology classes or um, letter writers who have a PhD versus an MA. I do think psychology faculty for at least two of your letters, if possible, faculty with a PhD, but especially in the Cal State system, we have a lot of really terrific instructors who have master's degrees. And so I would rather you have a strong letter from a lecturer faculty that you took statistics with or research methods with who knows you well than a letter from a faculty member with a PhD who you either didn't do as well in their class or they don't know a whole lot about you. And so many of you are applying for classes, signing up for classes right now. You might consider taking the class with the person that you're thinking to ask a letter for and starting to get involved and get to know them a little bit better.
I'll pick up on another question that I think maybe two are related. So, for example, if you are interested in becoming a social worker or you want to pursue a graduate program that is licensing, like an MSW, an MFT, or an LPCC, it's important to note that our program is not going to provide the training and it's not going to give you access to the licensing exam. So if you want to become, for example, a social worker, you have to complete your master's at a program that trains you to be a social worker, and that is going to give you the what is the word that I'm looking for? The credentials that you need in order to take the exam, right? So it's not possible to complete our graduate program and then take the licensing or do the licensing part at another program. What some students do, if they are interested in applying to a master's program, for example, in marriage and family therapy, but it's a competitive program, some students might do a master's back to back, where after our program, they have a lot of research experience, they have letters of recommendation, they are better qualified as opposed to students that are applying out of undergrad. So they are going to be more competitive. It is going to be a completely independent program, our master's and then their master's. But if you apply out of undergrad and don't get in, then that might be an opportunity for you to really develop your skills as a student, and get your letters of recommendation and improve your research skills because some programs also do have a thesis in addition to their clinical training. So those are answering some questions about licensure and if you still want to become a therapist after Cal State LA. In regards to the jobs that we provided for forensic psychologists at the very beginning of the presentation, those are things that you can do with an MS in forensic psychology. As with all of these other options that we provided, it's important to note that these career options are available, but oftentimes they are not as competitive as someone, for example, with a PhD. Because people with a PhD that are not clinical, that are not licensing, I have a PhD, but I am not a clinician. So I do not have any training to become a therapist or to see people. That is completely not something that is within my purview or my training. People that complete a PhD in research also go into the workforce. So that is a real option for them to go into jury consulting, to go into investigative research, or policy research as a PhD researcher. So that is something that might be that you might see is that the minimum requirement might be a master's degree, but they might prefer a PhD. So that's something that you might consider.
Yeah, so there's been a couple of questions about students in other departments at Cal State LA engaging in research with psychology faculty, or whether students from other universities like CSUN participating in research labs. And it's absolutely possible, um, but I don't know how likely it is. So, what you would do if you were interested in learning more about the different research opportunities we have here, you would look at the website of our different faculty, and then on one of the earlier slides where I mentioned the mentors in the MA program, I have a link specifically to research labs. And you would reach out to faculty members individually to see if they're looking for volunteer research assistants. I know just for myself, I try to prioritize current Cal State LA students. And I want to ensure that the graduate students in my domain, in my lab, have enough access to me as a mentor and also data and other experiences that we have, that I do try to keep my lab at a certain size. And so I would consider outside folks if the fit was there. But it wouldn't be, I think that's part of why we prioritize mentoring in the program. Dr. O, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I think another question is how much research experience is desirable? And this is a tough question to answer. And again, I don't want to say If you don't have any research experience, you're not going to be competitive, or you need a specific amount of research experience because we do have a holistic system. So we look at the entire applicant. We are going to consider your GPA. We are going to consider your letters of rec. We are going to consider your statement of purpose, and we are interested in what research experiences you have or how well you can talk about your research experience. So someone that has 1 or 2 years experience in a research lab, but maybe has other pieces that are not quite as strong in the packet, does not necessarily mean that they are going to be admitted in our program. So every faculty is going to be a little bit different. I'd rather see a strong applicant overall where they have a compelling story and have compelling and clear goals of what they are interested in researching and can talk about valuable research experiences, as opposed to how long they've been involved in research or how many labs they've been involved in research, because the quality of that experience is also really compelling as opposed to amount. So something that I always tell my students or students that I mentor is that quality over quantity is always really more compelling, because the more that you can do and the more in depth you can get into these different types of positions and experiences can really speak to your growth and your understanding and your critical thinking, as opposed to just having a lot of different experiences, but not really growing or not being able to develop a relationship that is long enough that's going to result in a letter of recommendation.
Yeah, that's great. There were a couple of other questions submitted earlier and on the Google form about kind of specific classes, like what's our roadmap to take to be competitive for these research degrees? And I'll let you comment on some specific forensic classes, but I do think take statistics and research methods early. That's going to help you get those core skills that you'll apply in your last semester or year. If your university offers something like advanced research methods, that can be incredibly clarifying for you as to whether you really enjoy all phases of the research process, and is also a great alternative if you're not in a research lab to get that more hands-on conducting a project start to finish. I would also encourage you to take classes that are in your area. My research kind of straddles biological psychology and clinical psychology. And so if a student took a physiological psychology class, that's something that I'm going to notice and look at. They could talk about in their statements. Maybe you have to write a paper in that class and you can practice integrating and reading the research in that area. For forensic, I think there's sometimes some psych and law classes. I think you mentioned maltreatment. Are there other classes in particular that you'd recommend, Dr. O, for folks interested in forensic?
This is a good question. And yeah, some folks do minor in criminal justice, or they might take some of these courses at Cal State Layer in their home department. I personally value experiences outside of the classroom a little bit more than the classes that you are taking. So it's great to think about what classes you can take and what you can talk about. But if instead of focusing your energy on that extra class, and you do something outside of the classroom that is going to build your network and help make connections with the faculty mentor, that's really valuable, right? Or if you do take a class, for example, in child maltreatment, but you build a strong relationship with the instructor that is that they can talk about your discussions and your participation and how you have gone above and beyond in that class, that's really compelling. So really thinking about ways that you can contribute to your packet outside of your transcript, because what is in your transcript may not always get reviewed, because we're reviewing your statement. What's your story? What are your goals, right? We're reviewing your letters. What do your instructors say about you? Your transcript doesn't always is not the first thing that we look at. We really want to look at, the qualitative evidence in your packet. And I
That's
think
a really
we're just ending on time. I think I'm going to give you another reminder. If you have not registered your attendance today, we will send the link to these slides. And of course, if you are on campus, feel free to reach out if you'd like additional information, but hopefully you found today's session really helpful.
Yeah. Lots of great questions that were submitted today and before. You all are so intentional and asking all of the right things. Thank you for being here. Please, please, please use these to strengthen your application. If you are a Cal State LA student, yes, follow up with us. Um, like on campus, people can usually find my office. It's near a bathroom. And if, um, yeah,
Great.
and just kind of, I guess, my closing thought is, I think, just to echo what you said, Dr. O, of like, we're looking for your story, and that's through those your statement, your letters of kind of who you are as a person.
Thank you all and have a good rest of your evening. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just to make sure.